Thank you for coming. I know you've been watching all of the shows since 9:30. We had great hopes of dealing with lots of issues, but as you've heard, very hard to get away from the effects of the terrible events of recent years. Yes?
Yes, I've been listening all the way through. I'm sorry that I wasn't actually here, because what I'm afraid I did get coming through was that somehow the church was out there. It was them, it was somebody else. And we were all angry with them. Well, many of those who spoke. I'm angry too with what some have done. Some who represented the church, who caused appalling harm, appalling, sometimes life-lasting damage to innocent little ones whom the Lord so loves. One couldn't but be angry about that. But it's more important to try to do something constructive about that. Now, we have certainly our shortcomings, but I'd like to feel that we all in the church share in that pain, share in that anger. And I feel that we bishops certainly have our known shortcomings, and you know them and have expressed them very well. And it's been good for me to listen. But we do feel the need of your help. We have tried to get expert advice, to get professionals representing all the relevant disciplines to help us in our advisory committee. That committee has been working exceedingly hard. And I think that that committee in its way has been a microcosm of the church, just as you who are present here are a microcosm of the church.
Is this the advisory committee now, Cardinal?
I'm talking about the advisory committee that's helping us on the question of child sex abuse.
It's 5 years, as somebody said, and nothing yet.
That doesn't mean that we have been absolutely clueless and without a clue as to what to do. We have been getting from that committee, as sad cases turned up, tragic cases that have caused bishops sleepless nights. I'm not looking for sympathy for us now, that's our responsibility. But we have been getting from that committee advice as we needed it from time to time, according to the best conclusions they'd arrived at that particular moment. It's not that we were left clueless in the meantime, but I think they felt, and I feel, it was better get it right than get it quick. We had the advice as we individually needed it, but I think that we need now to have something that can be broadly and widely circulated, and which I hope will receive the welcome and the support of the whole church, including yourselves.
What about the enormous gulf, Cardinal, that Father Hoban talked about between people and clergy? We're caught in a clerical world.
I wonder. If there was this enormous gulf, I'd not have come this evening. I was very happy to come. And I felt it would be a good experience for me. Now, there are quite a number of priests here, and there are some who may not feel there is this gulf and they haven't spoken yet. There are young people here, Gay, and they know the problems in the church. They know the scandals in the church. And yet some of them have been willing to commit their lives to that church at this time. I'd like to hear from them how on earth they were able to take that decision with all that's going against the church at this time. And yet they feel confident enough to see enough signs of hope in the church to say, yes, I'll give my life for that church. And there are priests here, I think, who perhaps don't entirely share the feeling that there's a great gulf fixed between them and their lay people, because they're working very closely with lay people in dioceses and in parishes right across the land. Not as many as there should be. We want there to be more. But there certainly are already existing diocesan pastoral commissions which involve the lay people with their priests in partnership. And I should have thought that every diocese throughout the country is at this time committed, and some are more advanced along the road than others, certainly, but are committed to working for a collaborative church and collaborative ministry with lay people in the church. That's an ideal. We're working towards it, but we need the help of everyone to get there.
How about this culture of fear? I'll take a break before I'll let you in, please, if I may. How about this culture of fear, Cardinal, between priests and bishops and higher-ups? the culture of fear.
It's an old cliche that after a bishop was ordained, sorry, it's a cliche that's often said of a bishop on the day he is ordained, that he'll never eat a bad dinner or hear the truth again. I don't worry about the bad dinners or with good dinners either, but about hearing the truth again. I would honestly have to say that through mail and face-to-face, I've had more hard and cutting things said and written to me as a bishop than I would ever in my life have thought of saying or writing to anybody else. And that's been good for me. Painful, hurtful, yes, just as listening to some of the things said today were painful and hurtful, why would they not be? But they've been good for me. They've been occasions of grace for me and of growth for me and of humility for me. And one thing I'd like to say is that the church, in my view, is healthier now than it was when I was a young priest. Because there is more openness, there is more readiness to talk, there is less of this dark secret that people have to hug and which they're afraid to speak of, which they don't have the language to speak of. Thank God that these things have come out in the open, as somebody has remarked very rightly.
Cardinal, do you think, I was going to say in my lifetime, whatever about your lifetime, but in the foreseeable future, do you think there will be a married clergy?
To some extent, there is a married clergy already in the church because we have, for example, convert clergy.
Yes.
I do not believe, let me be quite frank about it, I do not believe that the Latin Church is going to change its position, which it has maintained against all difficulties, against a lot of criticism, a lot of opposition over 1,500 years. It will not likely change that tradition, and I think that, well, as it was, each one speaks out of their own personal experience. I thank God to find celibacy a liberating and enriching experience in my own life. I thank God for it. I feel it has opened for me opportunities of friendship with women which are totally non-sexual, totally incompatible with celibacy, and which are in no way threatening or compromising, and which have enriched my own priesthood, my own life. And I don't think that that kind of relationship would have been so easily possible for me had I been a married person, when I had someone else's love, exclusive love, to think about as well as my own.
And do you ever see women priests? Ever?
No, but I think that I do not, because I believe that here again, from the time of the apostles themselves, we have had... I'm not going to start quoting theology or quoting the fathers of the church about this, but from early times this question has arisen, and there were, of course, women priests in all except the Judaic religion, in all the Hellenic religions, mystery cults and so on, in which the gospel is first preached. There were women priests there. Why not in the Catholic Church? Why did our Lord, after violating all the taboos against women, nevertheless not break the last taboo of having a woman among his, or women among his apostles? And always the phrase used in the writers of the church was, it is an ordinance of the Lord. Now, it's not because the church is unwilling, not because the church is anti-woman, but because the church, to quote what the popes have been saying recently, does not feel itself authorized to do this.
Okay,
hold on,
just one last, let me give, yes, I'll come to you. I'm sorry, I want to take a break first, but one last question for the Cardinal. Is there anything you want to add to what you've heard? Summarise the whole thing, your feelings now at this juncture of the show.
I think that there are great signs of hope in the church at the present time. I find them as I go around. And someone has said, after all, we idealise the church of the 30s and the 40s, the good old days. These were the days when these scandals were happening, but they were not able to be talked about. It's a healthier state of affairs now that they are talked about and come out into the open. And that can make us what we should always have been, a penitent church. a repentant church, a church that realizes the strength of sin within its own membership, within its own clergy, within its own hierarchy. And nevertheless, because of that, not in spite of that, but because of that, has all the more trust in the saving grace of Christ, who loves that church in all its brokenness, in all its sinfulness, and in fact loves it more because it's sinful.
Right, we'll take another break here, and then I'll invite the audience to put questions and points, and our panel as well. All right, let's have a break here. Thank you. Right.
Relaxing in the care bath and lotion.
Just repeat for me what you've just said. There are callers saying, did you apologise for what has happened in the church?
I've lost account of the number of times I have apologised, but I couldn't apologise too often. I need to do it as often again.
Very
and
good.
Again.
Father, what did you say just during that commercial break there? Repeat
Just
it.
one point. I mean, there are people here with very different and impassioned views and longing to put them. But I would just ask for a little bit of reasoned debate rather than the sniggering that's been on in the audience when the Cardinal spoke. I mean, if there's a lay woman, it would be very, very different.
If it was what?
If there was a young lady, when Patricia spoke, and I would agree with Patricia on some points but not on others,
Yes.
we listened politely.
Yes.
I would just ask for the same politeness when we're listening to the Cardinal. I'd hate to see this show degenerate into the debacle you had in the divorce referendum 2 weeks ago.
The debacle? Well, if people feel very strongly about something, Father, they will want to
throwing bricks at one another.
I know, well, they weren't throwing bricks at each other. What did you want to say? You gave up 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago from Clonliffe. For various reasons, but first of all, I'd just like to say to the Cardinal, fair play to him for coming on, because he is in a way being scapegoated
Yes.
for a lot of stuff that's going on in other areas.
Yes, okay.
And he also has pointed out that there are young people here, and fair play to you for letting us
Very
speak
good,
up.
yes.
I disagree somewhat. He said earlier that there is a lot of people who still, support the church and go out in vocation. Their vocations, they're finding their vocation in life. I was 5 years in Clonliffe, and I'm not making it out to be a sob story. I really, really enjoyed it. It was the happiest 5 years of my life. But I won't be ordained, basically because I wasn't happy with the church, institutional church of today. They won't allow me to get married. I'm not saying I have anyone to marry, but a possibility. And there's various other issues that I don't really agree with, so I have to pull out.
With.
Yes, and I have to pull out because of that.
And you pulled out.
And I am one of many, many, many people, men and women, who the church won't really look at because we won't remain celibate.
Right.
And because we have different views to what the powers of the church say is the truth.
Right. You stayed in.
Well, no, actually,
no, you didn't. Oh, you didn't.
I didn't go in at all.
And no wonder I'm confused. And you've no intention of going in.
Going in. But I think that part of the problem is that a lot of the discussion earlier on, when young people were mentioned, it's as if young people weren't part of the church, and I think the Cardinal was the first one to acknowledge that. But the thing is that the church of today is very different to the church of the past, because people are more inclined to question, and young people are more inclined to question. I'm from the Diocese of Ferns. Brendan Comiskey, a very highly regarded bishop, and he was one of the bishops who certainly listened to ordinary people and to young people, which I think the point that was made earlier, there is a gulf between people and the bishops, but Brendan Comiskey was an exception. I think the problem with the church is that the Cardinal spoke about there is more openness coming into the church. It hasn't happened quickly enough. What people are annoyed about is what they see as hypocrisy. People are willing to forgive mistakes, but the problem is that the church hasn't been open enough. It hasn't been willing to be able to put its point of view across. For young people, I think there is still a feeling that basic Christianity is good. Sister Moore made the point about when the church is speaking, it should speak less about the institutions. It should speak on the issues that it knows best, about working in the community, about social justice, about fighting for the disadvantaged within our community. And if I can finish with one, sorry, Gay. When I was in first year in UCD, it was the weekend before all the exams started, and I lived in the residences there, and there was a large crowd of us heading towards 11:30 Mass, and a window opened up above, and a voice boomed out, "God won't save you now." There's a certain amount of truth in that, but I think for young people there is this sort of a sense of the Christian community, a sense of the basic belief of getting together and discussing real Christian issues. And the sooner that the clerics, and particularly the bishops, start to talk about issues that affect people in people's language, then I think the church will start to develop a lot more, rather than talking about sexual morality, rather than talking about the church in the good old days. Talk about the issues on the ground, talk about what priests are best at.
You should have gone in. I knew you should have gone in. Just let me ask you, how do you react to the Brendan Comiskey thing, since you're in his diocese?
It was a bit of a surprise at the time. I had a lot of sympathy and support for the man, because he's done an awful lot of work. I mean, the good side, the ecumenical work that he's done in the diocese, the fact that he did listen to people. I felt very hurt about the fact that he couldn't feel that he could speak out about the alcoholism and everything. And I think that people would have understood a lot more. I think that ordinary members of the church, the same way as priests do, feel an awful lot of hurt at times like that. And it's just a sense that, look, for heaven's sake, if something's going wrong, tell us. You know, the old phrase, it could happen to a bishop. Like, we know everybody is human. We're not going to expect you to be put up there on a pedestal. Young people, I don't think, will treat priests, will treat the bishops as if they're on a pedestal. They'll treat them on a level. They'll get the respect. The respect, as somebody has made the comment earlier, the respect doesn't come from having the collar around the neck. The respect comes from addressing the issues and acting as a good Christian.
Well done. Okay. Hello.
Hi, I just want to ask a question to the panel. My name is Jenny, by the way, and I'm a student in Mater Dei. And I really feel I am very angry about what has happened in the church. I think a lot of people, young people, still have a basic belief in Jesus Christ, and there are a lot of young people still in the church. But as regards the institutional church today, when I leave Mater Dei, I would really like to know, in 2 years' time, what is the church going to be like? What actions are going to be taken now to bring young people, especially, back into the church? The church's greatest resource are the young people, and they really should be using them to the fullest. So I would really like to know, and like to ask the panel, what decisive action are you going to take?
Who specifically? Bishop Walsh? Father Hoban? Cardinal?
Yeah, Father Hoban.
Father Hoban. Why are you picking on him?
Well, of the three people you mentioned, I think I'm the least one in a position to make sure that anything happens in 2 years' time. But I take your point. I think the problem we have, somebody mentioned it there, the last speaker, it's a language problem, because people are speaking, I think now, a language of accountability, participation and openness. And then they look very often at their church, sometimes at their local church, maybe in a parish. They don't see a parish council, or they don't see it operating in the way it was supposed to operate in the spirit of the Second Vatican Council. Or they look at a diocese and they don't see a diocesan council operating the way it was supposed to operate. And they look at us and we're talking a language that they don't understand. If a group of farmers get together and there are people at the top table making decisions, and they're saying, we're not going to tell you what's happening, then they're replaced very quickly, or teachers or whatever. But when it comes to the church, the perception people have is that we're not able to communicate with them. We're not able to speak a language, the kind of language that they understand, and the kind of compulsions that they have in their lives. And the point I would make very strongly is that, with the Cardinal here and so on, in the Second Vatican Council, we have all these documents, the document on religious freedom and so on and so forth. We also have the law of the Church, which tells us that we should have in every diocese a diocesan council. We should have in every parish a parish pastoral council. But the reality is that that law hasn't been given life. And in a sense, I suppose, bishops and priests have to take responsibility for that and have to apologise for that. If even that moved forward in the next few years, I think we would make great progress in the church.
Yes, Bishop.
Just to answer the question, what are we doing about it? What I would like to think that I'm doing about it is that I'm listening to young people. Over the past 12 months, I have gone into the classrooms in the post-primary schools, all the final year students, and met them, spent 40 minutes with each class, and spent about 5 minutes talking, and spent the rest of the time more or less listening. I hope that I'm learning from that experience. Equally, I'd say that don't overestimate what I can do. I think it's what all of us can do together is really important. It's what all of us can do together. But I would be certainly very conscious of the fact that we do in some way seem to have lost a great deal of young people, and I think probably a problem
Talking of that, Sister Maura, are you getting anybody entering at all these days?
First of all, Gay, I really don't think that that is going to say anything about anything.
Isn't it?
Yeah, we have people joining us, so you know, how far they will go, how long they will stay, well, I don't know. But I don't think that that is really going to speak for us. I feel there's one thing I'd like to say before we get off this. When we talk about the question of married priests and ordained women, there's a question that I feel is never addressed, and that is, would it be a move that would help to spread the good news of the gospel? And I don't think that that is addressed. I think there's the whole question of tradition and people who try to say that it's scriptural, but there isn't that courage to take a risk.
What are you saying to me, Sister Maury? You're in favour of married clergy, and you're in favour of married, you're in favour of women priests.
I am.
You are?
I didn't make that clear to you at the beginning.
Well, you didn't. You didn't.
But what I feel...
You're in favour of both.
You see,
yes?
What I'm trying to say is the motivation behind that desire to see married clergy, the option. I think that, you know, we're not doing enough either to strengthen our conviction that celibacy or religious consecration is a vocation in itself. And I don't think that that should be the down payment for the priesthood. I think that...
Yeah?
And I think that if we could be less anxious about supporting the existing institutional church and trying to keep that in one piece, and look at it and say, what would help us to spread the good news of the gospel?
Okay, Patricia, yes.
I want to say something to the Cardinal. I appreciate the concern that you had about bickering, and I felt sorry for you, to be honest, when you were sitting in the seat. I don't mean this in a patronising way. I wouldn't have liked to have been sitting there, and, you know, though I understand perfectly why it's happening, but, you know, it's a difficult position you're in when, you know, you're under the spotlight and things have been thrown at you. And you're not in a position of power, but when you leave this room, in terms of my experience in the church today, you're a very powerful man. And you have a lot of power over what will happen to me in the church. And you displayed it by a statement you made, which I found hurting and insulting, when you said about women priests that it's not that the church, you know, won't change on women priests, it can't. And yet I am being told, you are the church. We are just with you. We are with you. We're one of you. You are the church. I believe I am the church, and I believe that everyone here is the church. But where do we look to discern the spirit of the church? There are people in this audience, there's a woman in this audience I know believes she has a vocation to the priesthood. The Spirit may be working through us. It may be telling you something through us. The direct line to God that the Pope and the bishops and the hierarchy have, which makes them absolutely certain that nothing can change, may be actually not the direct line you thought it was. And it may be working through the people, the young people who are leaving, the people who are here tonight, the things that are happening. We are the church, and you cannot say to me the church has decided and they can't change. And I believe that someday they will.
Okay, since the Cardinal talked about young people, two of you are staying in. You're seminarians at the moment, is that right?
Very much so.
Yes. Why? To answer his question, why, in the face of what's going on at the moment, are you staying in and going ahead?
Because I believe in what I'm doing. I believe very much so in what I'm doing. I believe the circumstances of my life have led me towards a decision which hopefully I will make in April, which is diaconate, taking of diaconate, and hopefully go on to take priesthood.
How long after?
How long? It would be a year. Say it's a year and a half from now.
So you've a year and a half to think.
To think now. Well, I'll be hopefully taking vows in April, which is diaconate.
Yes.
Which is 6 months or so.
You can still back out after that.
Of course, yes, of course.
But how are you coping with all this thing that's going on, and yet you're saying, I still want to do it, I still want to go ahead?
How am I coping? I think I'm coping pretty well. I feel a lot of emotions, actually. I feel anger, definitely, at what's going on. I feel that there is an amount of anger out there, and it has been displayed here tonight, that there is anger and there is frustration. And I can empathise with that. There's no way I would want any of my own brothers or sisters to be interfered with by whoever, priest or not. It makes no difference to me.
Have you any perception that the celibacy thing will hit you?
Come again?
Have you any perception that the celibacy thing will become a difficulty for you in later life when you're a priest?
I've no doubt it will become a difficulty, because I find it a difficulty at the moment, you know. Not that I'm still prepared to take a vow of celibacy. Very much prepared to do so. And I think I've struggled with it over my past. I'm 6 years now in Maynooth, and they've been very productive years, very, very happy years. But again, I've struggled, I think, and who wouldn't, really? Who wouldn't?
And are you still shielded from the world in Maynooth, as they used to complain that you were? You know that you go through this routine and you come out, you're released into the world as a priest, go and work in a parish, and you know nothing.
I never felt shielded from the world. No, from the moment I entered the seminary, never felt shielded from the world.
Good man. You're in Maynooth as well,
That's right, yeah.
And why are you continuing?
Well, I've only started. I've only there just over 2 months. Yeah. But we have a class of 26 students who enter this year, and I think it's a very hopeful sign.
26? That's very good.
26 is a very big, and it doesn't include students who would be in other seminaries in the country. That's just Maynooth.
How many are in your class?
They're about the same, 26.
26? That's a lot. Yeah.
Actually, the numbers seem to have come down from about my year on. I entered with a class of 63.
Yeah.
And as Ryan says, there's 26, is it, in your class?
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's a hopeful sign for the church. The image was put to us that we were jumping on a sinking ship. I don't think any of us believes that, and if we believe that, we wouldn't be where we are at the moment.
Right.
And we were all very, very committed.
Very
you
good.
know, to give it a go.
Yes, sir. You've been trying to get in for a long time. Yes. Hi.
I think there's a very important point to be made here tonight, and that is that there's a very, very strong faith community.
Yes.
Okay, and I think we're all agreed on that. Young people, middle-aged people like myself will be 35 next Wednesday, and older people.
You're only a child.
I'm only a child in relative terms. But I left seminary in 1981 because I felt I would have problems with the law of celibacy. And in 1986 I very happily married, and I'm still married, and I know that I was right to go and get married. But I still feel a very strong calling to priesthood, to serve the people in my community as a minister of the church. And at the Last Supper, Jesus sat down or knelt down and washed the apostles' feet. The role of the apostles was one of service. Tonight we've heard them being talked of and spoken of in terms of authority and power. I wonder about, would our Lord be happy? When our Lord was around, he had problems with the hierarchy of the time, the Pharisees, the scribes. He talked to them and he tried to explain to them what he was saying to them, that service was the important element in the community. I wonder if he came back now in the year 1995, what would he say to the hierarchy, not just here in Ireland, but across the world? Would he say to them, yes, you're bang on, lads, you're doing exactly what I wanted you to do, or would he have problems with them?
Right. Right up at the very back row. Sorry for keeping you for so long. I beg your pardon. Who are you, please?
Harry Ferguson from the Department of Applied Social Studies in University College Cork.
Yes.
Yeah. I have to confess, I was one of the people who sniggered earlier when the Cardinal was speaking. Yes. And I think what my sort of laughter reflected was a lot of scepticism that there is around at the moment, because although the Cardinal said that the bishops aren't clueless in relation to how they've handled the child sexual abuse cases, they have appeared clueless. And they still appear clueless, because we're still being told, after 5 years of this committee sitting, that they will only report on cases that they regard as serious. And I think that it's crucial, and I would like to hear some clarification on this crucial point, because having worked in this area for some time and studied it, I have to say that it is not the place of a bishop or anyone in the church to make a judgment about what a serious report of suspected child sexual abuse is. There are trained people in this country, in the health boards, in the Gardaí, who need to make those decisions, who are there to make those decisions. And if the clerical community is going to make these decisions about what constitutes serious cases, we're going to get into the same mess. We're going to continue to be in the same mess that we're in now.
Cardinal, what do you have to say about that?
There could be a certain misunderstanding as between serious allegations and serious abuse. Now, what the advisory committee is recommending and what we have adopted is a policy whereby there will be mandatory reporting of cases which give reasonable grounds for suspicion that an abuse has happened. Now, everybody who has a case brought to them has to make some kind of judgment as to whether this is a frivolous or whether this is a malicious or whether this comes from, whether this is something that one personally knows not to be possible, not to have happened, because some of the facts are not true. The person was out of the country when the allegation is supposed to have, when the facts are supposed to have happened. No. This is very, very few cases would be known to be frivolous. We have accepted an obligation to tell where there's any reasonable suspicion.
Why are you shaking your head?
Because it's not for bishops or anyone in the clerical community to make these judgments.
It's not for you at all to make these judgments, Cardinal. That's what you're saying.
And if you do, one of the reasons why the child sexual abuse scandals have developed in the way that they have, like the Brendan Smith case, is because child sex abusers are very, very manipulative. And there's been massive collusion involved here in terms of the male community in the church. This is a problem that surrounds men and the power that men have. And I would regard your unwillingness to report cases on immediately there's any grounds for suspicion. I would regard that as your reluctance to give up that power.
No, I don't think
another manifestation.
I don't think he's saying that.
I cannot concede.
First of all, you have to check out an allegation. Surely you'll grant that.
No, it's not for the clerics to do that. 25% of the reports that are made to the health boards in this country are screened out without investigations because there's no grounds for an actual investigation. Further inquiries, on receipt of the information, the health board makes further inquiries and they reach a decision that there is no grounds for an investigation. What the normal practice is in this area. The normal practice is for quite a lot of reports to get screened out after the delegated authorities who are trained to make the judgments you're talking about, Cardinal Daly. They are the people who should be making those judgments, not people like yourself, with respect.
Perhaps you should look at that again, Cardinal. Perhaps you should look at that
I cannot conceive of a case in which I would not, when an allegation was made, report immediately to the police. That's what I have done. That's what I think my fellow bishops have done and will go on doing. But we also are aware that there have been malicious allegations, false allegations. And this can be devastating to an individual. If I have knowledge that an allegation is mischievous or malicious, then I would have to conduct some kind of inquiry. I shall not do the investigation, but I shall have to satisfy myself in a very small minority of cases, and I cannot conceive of one. But there is a possibility that such could exist, and I have to protect my priests against falsehood.
Yes.
Okay, I've been sitting here all evening listening to the discussion from various sides of the floor, and I found myself, quite frankly, a little embarrassed that I might appear to be in collusion with the basic model of church that has been debated all night, with a few exceptions from time to time from a few members on the panel and so on. I think that we really haven't begun to look at the analysis, what has changed in Irish society to begin with. There's a serious problem. We've been talking as though the church needs a bit of fixing here, a bit of fixing there. There's a very serious analysis about the changes in Irish society and the role of the church in Irish society. Historically, Cardinal Daly and Bishop Walsh and my good friend Bill here have been, are heirs to a tradition where they were protectors of the faith of the innocent Irish people. They have functioned that way historically in the post-famine period, and have continued in a nice way still, a very benign way now, and they're very contrite indeed. But the reality is, of course, that the Irish society has changed drastically. We have huge problems of social nature to begin with that haven't even been mentioned tonight. What has the church to say to that problem in Irish society?
Yes.
The women's question, I'm afraid some of the discussion about the women's issue is quite clear that the way the Cardinal dismissed that as a possibility is quite frankly, in my view, historically not plausible. And I've written about this in a number of cases, and I think this is being quite well documented by others as well.
And 77% of the population think that there should be.
But the model of the church I would like to talk about really is the model of the church. When we have a crisis, we go back to beginnings. Personal crisis as well. psychologically. I'd like to go back to the beginnings of the church and see what kind of church we envisage there. How do we see the church grappling with problems? Part of the problem is that we are trying to fix a model of church that had been imposed from the Constantine onwards. We're the last bastion of Constantinian church, a state and church.
That's in Ireland you're talking about. We in Ireland are the last bastion. Yes.
Whereas most of Western Europe have got out from under it.
It's a quite different church in Western Europe. Yes.
And long since people have moved with their feet and are moving very rapidly with their feet here. And it would be absolutely, you know, whistling past the graveyard to pretend that the trend is not downwards, despite the things we've heard. Now, the reality, it seems to me, is we need a church in which there is a possibility of dialogue, a church that's open to the signs of the times. That was one of the keynotes of Vatican II. One of the signs of the time, quite frankly, one of the great signs of the time in our time is the liberative movement, the women's movement. The church is the one place where this is not being listened to. And the kind of patronising attitude of the Pope in particular. I'd like to ask the Cardinal.
Ask the Cardinal.
Ask one question.
One question, Cardinal.
I'd like to say, what does he make of the story in the New Testament where Paul resisted Peter to the face because Peter was not prepared to recognize a whole new situation that the church had no mandate from Jesus, namely to admit Gentiles without circumcision. Yet Paul's position won the day. In other words, what the model of the church I'm trying to talk about is a church that's open to the cultural experiences of the times and ongoingly open. It was not given a blueprint for priesthood or for anything else. It was given a vision and a good news and a gospel. The question I would have to say is it presenting good news to people who badly need good news in our society?
You want to answer that, Cardinal?
I think the church is trying to present the good news, and no one is doing it with more energy and more enthusiasm, and no one has a greater audience for doing it than Pope John Paul has done. And I don't like to think that he has been condescending or patronising. I think of all the modern popes, of all the popes of all history, he has tried harder than anyone else to dialogue with women. Now, I submit he may not have fully succeeded yet, but he is working hard on it. And no pope before him has tried as he has done to do it.
Okay, you want to, yes, here in the front row. Sorry, there's a man here in the front row.
I very much support what Sean says about the need for a church of dialogue and a church of listening. And one of the things that I have been thinking of doing now since I came and joined in this listening process was to decide to hold a listening day in my diocese when I go home with my diocesan pastoral council, just about all the problems that you have been having here. And I feel that I will therefore get, and 50% of that, on my instructions, 50% of the membership of the Diocesan Pastoral Council are women.
Good. Right. Yes, sir. Yes. Hold. Just hold on. Just half a jiffy. I'll come to you now. This man here has been trying to get in. Yeah.
Okay. I'm a social worker with a health board, and I counsel with a Catholic organisation as well. I would like to just say something on behalf of the many survivors and victims of child sexual abuse we're talking about, and ask the Cardinal, really, would he give them a bit of good news tonight? Is he able to invite them, rather than just sit back and wait for them to put their hands up? Is he able, on behalf of the Church, to invite them to come forward, to welcome them to come forward, and to assure them that they will be treated with respect, with sympathy, and with care? I would love to hear the Cardinal say that on behalf of the Church.
I have said it already at the end of our conference in Maynooth, and I very gladly say it again. So far from wanting to hide this, to conceal this, to cover it up, we want people to come forward. We will welcome them. We will listen to them. We'll do everything in our power to help, to be with them in their pain, to give them all the support and pastoral care and help with their families that we can possibly give to them. I invite them to do that.
Okay. The lady in red, yes. Lady in red, yes.
Yes, oh yeah, the lady in red does want to speak to you. Look, I would like just to ask the Cardinal maybe to go back, seeing as he was listening in earlier on, and address the point that was made by Patricia, which was the great difficulty that women have with the problem of complicity.
Could I ask you to summarise your feelings at the end of the show, because we've come to the end of the show now. Summarise your feelings.
I think when a bishop or I suppose a cardinal meets with people who quite understandably are angry with the church, that they want to vent their anger. They've got a chance, and people never got a chance of talking directly to Bishop Willie or Bishop Bill or myself before, and they welcome the opportunity. And they need to get saying all this, and they need to be heard saying it. I assure you, you have been heard. And that doesn't mean that it will be forgotten about tomorrow. It will not be forgotten about tomorrow. There are many areas where we're simply not communicating, and we've got to start thinking about that.
Okay. Are we going to have a synod? Are we going to have a synod?
A synod would, I think, be very helpful, but it would be useless if imposed from the top. It'd be useless if it didn't begin from the bottom up.
But it's begun.
And therefore it is beginning already at the level of parishes and dioceses. Now, many have not had that experience, and that's, I suppose, a reflection on us. We have not perhaps pushed it hard enough, but it would be quite false and misleading to say that nothing is happening. Sean McRaven and I, who shared the Second Vatican Council and its hopes together, I think that we would feel that there have been beginnings. Some people talk about a wintering of the church. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? There are signs of spring already in the church. Sean Dunn, that poet who died so tragically early in life and who at age 16 left the church, as so many do today, but found his way back, because, as he said, there are so many signs of excitement, of tenderness and of promise in the church around me that I want to be part of it. And I see those signs of tenderness, of compassion, of caring, of hope and of life in the church. And that's why I believe that the future of the church is safe in the Lord's hands. We knew that anyway. But it's safe from the signs of growth, a new life. But it takes time for them to germinate. And there can be frosts that will kill them in their infancy. But we've got to make sure that those shoots are given growth. And we need all of you working together as church to bring that about. But if we're not doing our job, please help us.
But Cardinal,
right, hold on.
How come,
Brian, sorry.
Cardinal, how come there are so many good priests, so many good lay people, and nobody believes that they are seen as good? Nobody believes that anything will be done. What's the problem in communication there? Because most people looking at this tonight will say, look, that was a talk shop, and it was nice to have a talk shop, but we will go to Mass on Sunday, and next year our parish will be the same. So how are we breaking that down? Why can't we do something to give people, in a practical level, the kind of hope and encouragement that you speak so eloquently about?
I wish I had some members of my own pastoral council here, or some of my own clergy here with me, to talk about the things that they are doing. I think that some of us have been very hard on the clergy. There are some of them working very, very hard.
Yeah, I agree. Some of them
along the lines that you desire, and getting there too.
But I don't think so, Cardinal. I don't think that's a fair. I don't think what you've said is fair, Cardinal Daly. And you and I have had arguments many times before, and I hope we'll have them again in a friendly sort of way. But Cardinal Daly, what I'm trying to say is that I know there are good priests holding the church together, and I know that there are good people working together, and I know there's a lot of goodness. But at the end of the day, the church is perceived as heavy-handed and out of date and lacking in compassion. Now, why is that? And we can't dismiss it just because preaching.
Of course, Brian, you accept that the church is also you, and I don't think people regard you as lacking in compassion. But you are the church. You are the caring face of the church. Many, many other priests are. A few bishops maybe are that too as well. We're trying. Not very good at it, but trying. Don't dismiss the whole thing because there are some...
No, I'm not dismissing it, Cardinal. That's precisely the point.
You're not dismissing it. Don't dismiss the whole clergy.
Yeah. Nor am I dismissing the whole clergy. Nor am I. But they have been let down.
You're here. Yes.
I've been let down. Bishop Willie and Bishop Bill have been let down. What do we do about it? We go and try to do better.
Maybe the system is wrong. Sometimes when the institution... If you're hurting and I'm hurting, and that's a good thing that we should be hurting, and the people are hurting, and the people who have been abused are hurting, and the people who feel locked out of the church because of rules and regulations, they're hurting. Now, if that is the truth, and you've admitted it and I've admitted it, so where's the compassionate church?
The Compassionate Church is hundreds and hundreds of women and men who are showing compassion day by day by day, and showing compassion to the poor, the neglected, the abandoned. There is no group of people in the church, the group of people in society, more than people committed to the church who are engaged in works of justice, in the work of peace and reconciliation in the north of Ireland and in Ireland as a whole, and in works of caring for AIDS sufferers, caring for the victimised, caring for victims of child sex abuse. The church is showing compassion in all those ways. One thing the church cannot be accused of is lack of compassion. The church is in the compassion business, every day, round the day. And priests who are living in ghettoised areas of massive unemployment, they are there, the caring presence of the Lord among those people.
Okay, stop, please. Cardinal, would you say good night and God bless you all?
It's been a very good experience. It's been very good to be with you. You are the church. It's a very varied church, a church which is angry, which argues. It's not for us to say, stop arguing, we won't have you. You are part of the church which we are. Stay with the church and change it if you like.
Right, well, I'm saying stop. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, Cardinal and our panel. Thank you all very much for coming along. I'm sorry we ran out of time. Good night to you until next week. Good night to you. Thank you.